Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 3rd September 2016. The first article is related to the Uniform Civil Code and All India Muslim Personal Law Board, what it was talking about, triple talaq, polygamy and halala. Now, you know that the marriage divorce is considered as an outcome of the religious views and perceptions. So, the Supreme Court intervention in the personal law, Muslim personal law, is been objected by the Muslim Personal Law Board. So, according to them, the triple talaq, these are the prescriptions of the religion, and the Supreme Court has no right to intervene into these religious prescriptions. So, what we can say over here is, Uniform Civil Code, it can bring in the legal unity in the country or a common law in the country, and at the same time, it can also provide for the better status to the women, and gender equality can be a reality in the personal life of us. And the other thing of this, if you take whatever the interpretations which are being given by the Muslim Personal Law Board, it is only one side of the coin. So for every religious text, there are multiple interpretations. But what is being codified into a personal law is only one of those interpretations. If you take the liberal view of triple talaq, it has been said that 90 days of all avenues of engaging the wife and husband have to be tried. If all the negotiations have failed, then they have to go for the triple talaq. But however, it is being simplified and it is used very liberally now. So in this context, whatever the personal law is only one interpretation of actually what has happened, rather than taking into multiple interpretations into consideration. Now coming to the terror in the Philippines. Now if you see the President Duterte, Rodrigo Duterte, so he is the President of the Philippines and he is on the war against drugs and crime in Philippines. In the process, there are extrajudicial killings and the human rights violations. In spite of the UN repeated warnings, he still continues that. And he tries or he threatens to pull out from the United Nations organizations. So now, remember one point over here. If the state starts disrespecting the law which it has made, then the citizens tries to take the law into their hands and it leads to a chaos in the country. So the state has to first respect the law. It means the state terror cannot be an answer to the terror of anti-state elements. Now coming to a disruptive debate. Now remember this point, in a market economy, the ultimate winner is the customer. So the competition ensures that customer gets the best services at the cheapest prices. The Reliance Jio launch is one such an event. Now if you take in India, so the network or weaknesses of the network are disruptive, or else we can say that there was network readiness index. India is placed low into this, the reason being there is no proper network across the rural India. And the second thing is, if we observe here, the India is placed around 18th position with regard to the Asia Pacific countries because of the low networks. And other aspects are lack of literacy, illiteracy, etc. So in this context, the mobile telephony is becoming a major source of the service delivery in the country. So the jam trinity and everything brings the mobile to the center. So the data, if it is available at the cheaper cost, obviously it is going to increase the consumption of the people and it facilitates the digitalization of the country. So the data costs, especially over the mobile, are the major inhibition for the people to get into the digital world. So the Reliance Jio's launch and the competitive pricing probably will change the situation. And coming to strike, you all know that the strike by the unions is allowed but not the associations. The Supreme Court in the Ranganathan case has clearly said that the strike is allowed for the unions because unions do not have, or working class do not have the control over means of production. So that's why only bargaining power with them is the strike, and there is no legal restriction on the strike. So in this case, yesterday there was a Bharat Bandh for the first time in the last, I think, a decade or so. So in this Bharat Bandh, all the trade unions have participated and it has led to the disruption of the normal functioning of the society. And coming to the Mother Teresa by Naveen Chawla's article, she is about to receive the sainthood tomorrow. So in this context, she tries to explore the life and journey of Mother Teresa. So Mother, she came from Yugoslavia and then she got settled herself in Calcutta and established the Missionary of Charity. So to get a sainthood, there shall be two miracles be proven to the church. And what Naveen Chawla says is her life itself is a big miracle because her constituency, that is the poorest of the poor, and with the dedication she served, it proves that the service to humanity has no religion and it is a religion in its own self. Now coming to, with regard to the river water sharing. So now, this is the most complicated thing. Now if you observe, the river waters, especially the building of the canals, embankments, etc., this is in the state list. But regulation of the river water, regulation and control of the river water, it is in the union list. And added to that, Article 262 of the Constitution provides for union to create, provides for the Union Parliament to develop an adjudicatory mechanism, and courts are kept outside this. And then, Interstate River Water Disputes Act was passed in 1956 by the Union Parliament. But the courts, though barred from this, by based on one or the other thing, that is, for example, an award is given by a tribunal that has to be final, but finding certain loopholes. For example, during the distress months, how the water has to be shared, or the tribunal did not take the sufficient data into consideration. Based on these matters, many of the states are approaching towards the Supreme Court. And Kaveri dispute is one such a thing which did not find a solution till date. Though the award is given, the states are not ready to implement these awards, and it is raising the tensions between Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. In this context, the Supreme Court has clearly said that the philosophy that has to govern the sharing of river water says live and let live. And India and Egypt, the defense and security ties. So now, during the Jawaharlal Nehru era, Egypt is, along with India, on the non-alignment movement. Jawaharlal Nehru of India and Nasser of Egypt, they were the active proponents of the NAM. Later, Egypt, it has moved close to the West, and the relations are not as fair as the olden days. So in these circumstances, Egypt has moved close to the Organization for Islamic Conference, and it is also vocal against the vocal on Kashmir against India. So in this context, Egypt was, after Mr. Hosni Mubarak got stepped down, Egypt was a victim of various series of terror attacks, and it is taking a tough stand against the terrorism now. So in this context, there is a collaboration of the voice between the India and Egypt on fight against terrorism. In this case, Egypt is also is chairman of Committee on Terrorism in the United Nations and is a non-permanent member of UN Security Council. So that India can have the Egypt to bring in its voice against voice in support of India's comprehensive convention against the terrorism in UN. And the second thing is they have extended the maritime cooperation, and also they have made a declaration on robust defense and security partnership. And another thing on the cultural front, Egypt has declared Egypt by Ganga in return to the India's India by Nile to that program. This is what is the exchange program launched. Coming to G20 Summit, it's going to happen in Hangzhou of China. So in this summit, the major thing is protectionism of China. So the China's protectionism, especially its cheap goods, steel, etc., are being dumped into various countries. So it has led to the loss of around 3 million jobs. So in these circumstances, the US is going to be very critical about China's cheap goods, that is, devaluation of yuan to decrease its prices further. So in these circumstances, these are going to be the major points of discussion. So South China Sea is also going to, issue is also going to dominate the G20 session. So many of the countries are demanding the China to reduce its overcapacities in various sectors. And coming to the finances, Australia and China, they are demanding for a strong alternate international financial system or a reform to the international financial system. So we need to see how it moves on. And then India's situation. India is the third largest producer of the steel and one of the top importers of the steel. Because India is at a growing phase, it needs more steel for its infrastructure and also make in India. So in this context, India is not going to be very vocal on China's position or China's overcapacities on steel. So these are the articles for today. Thank you very much.